Okay, so tonight's story is all about Prophet Isa alayhi salam and his birth story. And that story involves a couple other people. It involves his mother, of course, Maryam, may Allah be pleased with her. And it even involves his grandmother, whose name is Hannah.
Your name's Hannah?
That's correct. And it involves Zakaria alayhi salam, Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam, and that is his uncle, that is Maryam's uncle.
So it's his grandpa?
It is not, it is like his great uncle. And Zakaria alayhi salam was a prophet, and Zakaria also, I believe, had a son named Yahya, and Yahya alayhi salam was also a prophet. So Maryam has a cousin who is a prophet, an uncle who is a prophet, and a son who will be a prophet, or is a prophet. So that's pretty phenomenal. So
did not really, but Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had a lot of people related to him that were prophets.
well, his lineage is his whole lineage is filled with prophets, yes. But this is right there, like in your household, there are multiple people who are prophets, which is pretty incredible. So Prophet Zachariah's wife, her name was Ishat, had a sister named Hannah. So this is...
One second. You can so deep.
So this would be...
A sister? No.
Yeah, so Prophet Zachariah is married to a woman named Ishat. Ishat has a sister named Hannah. So it's like Prophet Zachariah's sister-in-law, okay, is Hannah.
Kind of.
And Hannah was married to a man named Imran bin Nashi. And Hannah and Imran were very religious and pure people who were pious and feared Allah and were very...
Feared?
Well, that means that you don't want to make a mistake, you don't want to commit sin because you fear Allah and you love Allah. So it's not that you're scared of Allah, but you fear that you don't want to displease Him. So you always want to please Allah to the point where you fear displeasing Him, but you don't fear Him, you fear the displeasure that you might cause Him, if that makes sense. So, and don't forget that Prophet Zachariah alayhi salam was a prophet, so of course he was one of the most religious people. He was a prophet, he was chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah chooses the best of the people. So, and this is kind of interesting, but Zachariah alayhi salam, he was sort of unable to have children. Like, he could have children, but it was really difficult. Which is kind of interesting because...
She already did.
No, like, I will tell you, like, in the past, there were other prophets, and it wasn't specifically the prophet himself. It may have just been who he was married to, but it's not uncommon, or rather, I should say it's not unheard of, that there were other prophets who it was difficult for them to have children. Do you remember any other prophet for whom it was difficult for that couple to have a child?
No. Oh, yes. Well, no, because they're not married.
So this would be Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. His wife Sarah was unable to have children. And so Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam married Hajar, and they had a child. And then Sarah had a child. And she was very old. It was a miracle because she was so old. It's normally not possible to have a child at that point. So it turns out that Zachariah alayhi salam and Isha also had trouble having children. And
Why?
Allah has said that there will be some people who have children and some people who do not. And there will be some people who only have girls, and there will be some people who only have boys, and there will be some people who have girls and boys, like a mix. Yes, like us, we have girls and boys. So that is something that Allah has determined, that some people can have children and some people cannot. And some people cannot have children, but then they get help and they go to a doctor and then they are able to have children. And some people, no matter how much help they get from the doctor, they're just unable to have children. Like Queen Asiya, who was unable to have children, but
She could.
she was still a mother because she was...
And she could just... I mean, she wasn't actually married to her brother, so she could have children.
Well,
Like, she could just...
some people are unable to have children, and she, probably because of her lineage, I can't say, she was unable to have children. But she was still a mother to Prophet Musa alayhi salam. So Zakaria alayhi salam and his wife Isha were unable to have children, and this is very sad for some people. It's very, very sad for them if they cannot have children. Some people really, really want children, and also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put in all of us a want, like a need, a want and a need, a desire to have children. Like there's something in us that makes us want to have children. When we grow up, we want to have children. But not all of us want the same way. Some of us want it tremendously, and others don't want it as tremendously, and other people are like, it's okay if I don't have children. But the vast majority of people want children. We're created that way, to want children. If none of us wanted children, if we all really...
Then there would be no one here.
There would be no one here. So it's important that we are created with that instinct. Okay, so for many years, Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam and his wife Isha, who were very religious, prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless them with a child. And when you're praying to Allah, you may say, if you bless me with this child, I will do everything in my power to make sure that child is a good slave to you, O Allah, and a very good servant. Like just that his whole life or her whole life would be in servitude to Allah. Like sometimes when you really want something, you want to make sure that what you're getting, that Allah blesses you with that, and that you would hope that whatever it is that you got would be in the way, in the path of Allah, right? So if you asked for a really great fast car, then maybe that really great fast car would always take you to the masjid for prayer, right? Okay. So they prayed to Allah and they asked that their child would be, they would do everything they could to dedicate that child's life to serving Allah. And so,
They had a kid.
They had a child. So, I kind of made a little tiny mistake. Yes, Zakaria and Isha had experienced difficulty having children, but also what I meant to say was that Imran and Hannah also experienced difficulty having children. And they are the ones who prayed that their child that they would do everything they could to dedicate that child's life to serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? That's what I meant to say. So, Prophet Zakaria had a son named Yahya, and he went on to be a prophet. Yes? And Hannah and Imran prayed for a child, and Hannah, the mother, really wanted a child who could serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and do good on this planet, right? Like do something for humanity. And they were blessed with a baby girl whom they named Maryam. But after all those prayers, there was a little bit of Hannah felt like, how is my baby girl, how is she going to live a life that's in service to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because she's a girl, and maybe at the time it was more difficult, possibly, for a girl to have that kind of impact. But Maryam grows up to have an amazing impact, not just on their time, but on time until now, like for people like all over the world. And so when they had their baby girl, whom they named Maryam, they kept their promise to Allah, and they asked Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam to be her caretaker and her guardian, because he was a very religious man since he was a prophet, and they wanted her to grow up to be a very religious woman and to have a lot of knowledge. They basically, in a way, sent her to him to be mentored and taught by Prophet Zakaria, which means she would be an amazing scholar. And so Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam made a special room for her, like a chamber, probably had space for her bed, maybe had another part of that chamber which was her study, where she could learn and read the scriptures and study. And she would spend her days in that special chamber where she would sleep, and she would study, and she would pray. Now, something interesting. Whenever Prophet Zakaria would enter her chamber to visit her, he would find fresh fruit and tasty meals on a tray. And he was curious, because it was unusual, nay, it was a miracle for there to be fresh fruit that was out of season in her room, and no one put it there. And back then, which is very different from now, and I know that it's hard to imagine, but back then, the only fresh fruit you could have was fresh fruit that was in season. And because you can go to the grocery store now and get any kind of food you want, regardless of the season, it doesn't feel like a miracle that out in the middle of wherever they were, she might have food that was from a different part of the world, or that was fresh fruit that was not in season. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was taking very good care of her, because she would soon be having a baby who would kind of change the world for a very, very long time. So she was well taken care of by her parents and by her guardian, by Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam, and of course by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always. And so Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam would ask her, "From where did you get this ripe fruit?" And she would say, "From Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He gives food to whomever He wants without any measure." So Allah provided the fruit. Now Allah could have literally provided that fruit miraculously on that table, but it can also mean that Allah provides everything, because Allah does provide everything. So Allah had blessed her in a very special way with blessings that are only reserved for really great, amazing people. And there is a hadith. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, there are 4 women who are unsurpassed. Like Allah has 4, sweetheart. 4 amazing women. They're role models. They're just incredible women.
Moses' mom? Prophet Moses' mom?
His foster mom. Let's count them up and see if we've got them all. Queen Asiya. She's the...
I'll tell them.
Sure.
Queen Asiya. Queen Asiya.
Mm-hmm.
Khadija,
Mm-hmm.
Fatima,
Mm-hmm.
Maryam,
Very good.
and the sheep one.
That was it. Just those 4 women.
But what about Maryam?
This Maryam.
No, what about the other one?
Mm-mm. This one.
Her?
Mm-hmm. This is the one. So Maryam, the mother of Isa alayhi salam, is one of the greatest women. She was a devout, pious, gentle, intelligent woman who had a miraculous birth, or gave birth miraculously. Queen Asiya, who was the foster mother of Prophet Musa alayhi salam, and Khadija, who is the wife of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the mother of his children, the majority of his children, and Fatima.
What do you mean we both have children?
Well, because he was married to other women too,
Yeah,
and
I
some
know,
of them
they
had.
only had those children.
They had what?
They only had those children.
Yes, and so Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had other children, and Khadija alayhi salam had other children. So together they had 6 children. And then Fatima, who is the daughter of Khadija and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses certain people with amazing miracles and favors. And these were blessings and favors and miracles that Maryam, may Allah be pleased with her, received before, during, and after she had Prophet Isa alayhi salam. So, considering all of the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done for his prophets in the past, like the way he saved Nuh and the followers and the believers during the Great Flood, and how he helped young Dawood alayhi salam defeat giant Jalut, and how incredible it was that he saved Prophet Musa alayhi salam on multiple, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved Prophet Musa alayhi salam on multiple occasions, first being when he was just a baby in the basket, and then later when he was able to escape with his people through the Red Sea, and it was parted, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala parted the Red Sea. So to provide fruit and food for Maryam alayhi salam was a small task. For Allah, there's no task too big. But when you think about parting the Red Sea versus a plate of fruit, you can get a plate of fruit today from all over the planet within a day or less. But parting the Red Sea, I still don't think science can do that today. So Maryam, may Allah be pleased with her, in a way allowed Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam to have a moment of reflection, because it was so matter of fact for her to say, well, Allah has provided the fruit. Like, Allah can do anything. And so Zakaria alayhi salam, when he left, because remember, he and his wife also had trouble having children, right? So when he left the chamber, he also thought, well, if Allah can provide anything, certainly he can provide a child for us, because providing a child is more miraculous, is quite a big thing compared to providing fruit and food. So Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam prayed that Allah would grant him a child who was pure. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was pleased with Zakaria alayhi salam, and he was also pleased that Zakaria alayhi salam had prayed for a child for the benefit of the Bani Israel, not for his people, for the benefit of the community, for the people, because the people needed a prophet. They needed leadership. He was a prophet, but he was getting old, and he wanted, I don't know, but he was aging, maybe even older. Prophets,
80s,
maybe, and to have an offspring, a child who can be raised and taught and then help lead the people was of great importance to Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with a child, and that child was named Yahya.
Well, I thought that was already there.
Yeah, I thought so too, but I made a mistake. So now we're going to jump ahead a little bit to the birth of Isa alayhi salam. So Maryam is a little bit older. She has spent possibly 18, thereabouts. And she has spent all her life studying and praying and being under the care of Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam.
Praying for what?
Well, in worship, I should say. Not just praying for something in particular, but doing her prayers and reading the scripture and studying it. And she was probably a scholar, considering that's what she devoted her life to doing. She was very intelligent. So, Maryam, who was the daughter of Imran and Hannah, had been placed in the care of Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam. She had grown up to truly be someone who exemplifies just a good believer. And she had become so strong in her faith and in her knowledge. And she had spent so many hours in prayer and in meditation. And she was so close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just so amazing. Such an amazing woman. Such an amazing role model. Then once, when she was deep in prayer, she felt a strange presence in the room. Something was in the room, something she couldn't quite understand the energy in the room. But as she was a very smart woman and a very educated woman and very perceptive, and she had spent hours in meditation and in prayer, she very quickly realized that it was Angel Jibril who was coming to give her a message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Angel Jibril is the angel who brings revelation and messages from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She trembled with fear and excitement, and she listened to the angel. "O Maryam," said the angel, "Allah sends you some good news of a son who will be known as the Messiah."
What does that mean?
A messenger, one person who brings a message and saves people. Isa, the son of Maryam, will be a great honor in this world and in the hereafter. He shall be one of the people who is drawn close to him, drawn close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will speak to mankind in his cradle and in his manhood, and is among the righteous.
Why did he pick the name? Why couldn't she pick the name?
I do not know. And this is a very strange message, because Maryam is not married. So she was confused. She couldn't quite understand and comprehend what she had heard. Could she be having a baby? Why, that's not possible. She's not married. She's never been married. She can't have a baby. My provider, she asked, how can I have a child when I've never been married? The angel replied, thus it will be. Allah creates what He desires. When He wants a thing to be, He merely says, be. And it is. And He will teach him the scripture and wisdom and the Torah and the Injil. Saying this, Jibril approached Maryam and blew a sweet breeze in her face. When Maryam opened her eyes and looked around, Angel Jibril had disappeared. Maryam sat alone in her chamber, all by herself. Chamber is like a room, but it may be larger than, say, a bedroom.
But why called chamber?
Chamber is another name for room, but it may be a larger room than just the bedrooms that we're used to now. And she was just stunned. She just sat there in disbelief. She didn't know what to do. She was completely overwhelmed at what she heard, and she was not sure what was going to happen next. She was going to have a baby who was going to be a Messiah, who was going to bring a message to the world. He was going to draw people closer to Allah, and he was going to speak as an infant, and he will speak in his adulthood. But Maryam knew that what she had experienced was real. It was not a dream. It had to be the truth. But if she were to have a baby, certainly the townspeople would ridicule her. They would make fun of her. They would mock her. But more importantly, they may punish her for doing something that was a grave sin. You were not allowed to have a child without being married. It's a huge sin. And she is such a religious person. It would be horrible. Her reputation would be damaged forever. And she was young. And she didn't go anywhere. She studied so much.
Didn't she tell her uncle or something?
I think she was too scared. And she was worried that the townspeople and the community might harm her if they found out she was having a baby. It was a very serious, serious sin to have a baby when you weren't married at that time. And aside from her whole reputation being lost and people thinking that she was just a horrible person, and she was such a religious person, and she would, as a religious person, to have committed such a grave sin is even worse. So she made a decision, and she decided that the only way to protect herself and her baby and her reputation was to leave. And so she packed her things and she left, and she moved very far away.
Did she just move?
She left from where she lived. She had to go somewhere else. So she gathered what she could carry, and she traveled very far to a place where she was sure nobody would know her and nobody would recognize her. She made sure that there were no friends where she was going. She made sure that there would be no family members, because she needed to be someplace else where nobody would question where was the husband, where no one would question what happened to him. Maybe he was traveling, fictitiously. Maybe he was working somewhere. Maybe he had passed away. But nobody would question where her husband was. But had she stayed, people would all know that she wasn't married and know that she didn't have a husband. So all she had was herself and her unborn child. Her belly was growing, and the baby was inside, a blessed baby. But however hard things got, however lonely she was, however hungry or desperate she was, she knew that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would take care of her and provide for her and give her food and shelter. But she was still lonely. She prayed to Allah continuously, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect her and her baby from harm, physical harm, that she should not be harmed, but also from rumors and people saying bad things about her and her baby. She prayed that the people would not find out where she had gone and why she had left her home. Because if people would be like, where is Maryam? Where did she go? We need to find her. And they might send people out to go look for her. And if they found her and they found that she was pregnant with a child, they may harm her. And so she tried to keep her pregnancy a secret. And in the beginning, it's pretty easy to keep a pregnancy a secret because your belly is kind of small. But soon, over time, your belly begins to grow. And maybe you can hide it with some loose clothing, which she probably had, dresses and loose clothing. But over time, your belly just gets too big. And people are going to know. That belly means that you have a baby. And so she rarely went outside. She rarely saw anybody. She tried to stay in her home. She didn't want anybody to know that she was going to have a baby. And Maryam, may Allah be pleased with her, managed to keep the pregnancy a secret. She managed to stay by herself for months, alone in her home, until it was finally time that she should give birth. So at night she quietly snuck out of her village, of her house, and out of the village all the way to a palm grove, like an orchard of palm trees, date palms. And she made her way through the date palms, like through the grove, deep inside where certainly no one would be able to hear her or see her. See her first, but hear her second, or rather, hear her first. Because when you're in labor, it hurts, and sometimes you can make noise and people will be able to hear you. So she wanted to make sure that she was far enough away where nobody would hear her. She wanted to make sure that nobody had followed her. She wanted to make sure that nobody could see her. So when she had gone...
It was nighttime, though.
It was nighttime, yes. There may have been a moon out so that she could find her way. She was all by herself. It must have been so lonely and incredibly scary to leave your home in the middle of the night and know that your baby is coming and no one is there to help you. She made her way deep into the date grove, and when she had gone far enough into the orchard and she made sure nobody could see her or hear her, she stopped and she laid down under an old date palm tree.
And she shook it so the dates came down.
She certainly did. She clung onto the tree as the pain of her labor began, and that helped relieve some of the pain. She held on to support herself, and also she was able to have the dates fall from the tree and nourish her while she was in labor. She needed energy and she needed food. So she lay there under the tree all alone, but incredibly brave and courageous. And she didn't have somebody to help her deliver the baby. She didn't have a friend. She didn't have her mother. She didn't have an aunt. She had no one to help her. That's really scary.
She did.
She had Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are right. You never miss a thing, do you? She only had Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Only. She had the best thing. She had Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to provide comfort and security and protection.
And she had a baby that could talk, and that was a prophet,
That is correct. And throughout her labor and throughout the birth, she never stopped praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help her deliver that baby healthy, and also to protect her. And then, miraculously, because baby Isa alayhi salam did not have a father, he was born. Maryam, may Allah be pleased with her, gave birth to a baby boy named Isa. And there she was, Maryam, resting under the tree, praising Allah and thanking Allah for the beautiful, healthy little baby. And she lay there, and the little baby slept in her arms. She must have been exhausted, but she was relieved. Certainly, walking into the grove, the palm grove, had taken the majority of her energy, and certainly giving birth had taken the rest of the energy that she had left, including the energy that Allah gave her in order to have the baby. So she was very tired. She was very hungry. She was very thirsty. And she looked around, and of course there was no one to help her, and there was no food, and there was no water, and she was so weak and so exhausted, and she was all alone in the date grove with a baby
that could talk.
Well, yes, but not quite yet. He'll talk.
He could talk right now.
Yes, but he's asleep. And she started to worry, how is she going to make it back home? But once again, Angel Jibril came to her and spoke very soothingly to her and told her not to be worried and not to be sad. And he instructed that Maryam should shake the trunk of the tree and everything would be all right. And following the angel's advice, Maryam grabbed the trunk of the tree with whatever energy she had left, and she shook the tree. And to her surprise, the tree bent and shook as though it was soft, and plump, juicy dates fell from the branches, landing around her and the baby. And suddenly a fountain of clear water gushed up through the ground and began to flow in a little stream next to Maryam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always provide. The angel told Maryam to eat the dates and drink the water. He then told her to calm down and remind her that everything was going to be all right. Upon hearing this, Maryam felt much more relaxed, because it was a big ordeal to have been pregnant and have kept it a secret. And it was an even equally big ordeal to have given birth all by herself. But now she had to go back home. And she had a baby. And she was so worried about what people were going to say. But she did not have to worry, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would take care of her and her baby. And Angel Jibril said, if you meet any person, say that you are fasting to Allah and that you may not speak to anyone until you break your fast the next day. The angel then told her that if anyone asks where the baby had come from, she should simply point to the baby and keep quiet. When Maryam heard this, she felt much better, very comforted, because she knew that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would protect her. Because Angel Jibril is the messenger of Allah, the messenger who brings messages from Allah, revelation and messages. And so, Maryam, may Allah be pleased with her, felt comforted knowing that she had a solution to whatever problem should arise, the most serious problems of people asking her where that baby came from and asking her where she had been. So Maryam thanked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and made her way back through the date grove all the way back into the town, holding baby Isa alayhi salam. So we will pick up the story at a later time about what happens with Prophet Isa alayhi salam. But I will tell you this. As an infant, as a brand new baby in her arms, he could speak. And he told people that he was a prophet from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, most people believed him, but a lot of people were skeptical also. But no one harmed Maryam.
If you want to see the other lessons in this Islamic Waldorf-inspired main lesson block, you can tap on the screen right now. If you want more information about the curriculum that I have created, you can find it on my website at pepperandpine.com. And if you want to see how our homeschool is progressing on a daily basis, you can find me on Instagram at pepperandpine.